Recording in progress.
Is it actually? Do you know
Far
what
the
I've just
word.
realized? We
Bet
don't
you
have a
didn't.
name for this show.
I thought we already realized we had no name for the show.
Are we going with Roundtable?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show that does not yet have a name. This is our first episode.
Are we
Where
actually doing it like a show with no name?
no, that's not gonna be. We eventually will give it a name.
Then you better tell me what it is.
I don't know. I will once I think of it.
Hi there, little note. So, welcome to Trading Favorites. This is the show where basically we spend some time making a list and giving people some things to watch. And once we've done it, there's no time limit on this show. We can just present it how we want, whenever we want. When we've watched something, we get together and we talk about it. And this episode is all about Five Nights at Freddy's. So take it to me and Wade to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Anyway, this is our first episode where I was voluntold to watch Five Nights at Freddy's, and I
Five
did.
Nights at Freddy's, is this where you wanna be? I just don't get it.
Anyway, I loved it. It was a great movie. It was a good movie. Fair.
Especially as it is currently Blumhouse's biggest film. And I think it's the biggest horror film of 2023. Box
Nice.
office wise,
Yeah.
it did better than The Nun
I mean, it makes
and The
sense
Exorcist Believer.
it makes sense that like Five Nights at Freddy's, it's a good film, and so it's like people that know the Five Nights franchise are gonna like, hey, we want to go see this, see it multiple times, like you did, and then on top of that, people who are like might not know what it is, but like, oh, it's a horror film, and it being really good, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's just, I think there's a lot of reasons why people don't like it, and obviously I'll list those off during the show.
And those people are all wrong. Who don't like it.
Wow.
It is a good film. This is a
Everyone has a
fact.
difference in opinion, Wade.
And some are wrong. No.
And some are fucking. Imagine if that was the tagline, and some opinions are just wrong.
God damn it.
You started this.
No. I have a name for the show now. Some opinions are just wrong.
No.
That's not the name of the show. That's not the name of the show.
Absolutely not. I would not let that leave the development stage.
To be fair, though, it would be funny. Anyway, I have been told you have specific questions, actually.
I do, because I thought it'd be best to go through Five Nights at Freddy's, specifically with some questions attached.
Yes.
And go through opinions. Okay.
Let's just get this out of the way. Yes, we all know Josh Hutcherson is hot, okay? You can cross the first question off.
but... Hey, caramba. Anyway. We all know he's everyone's crush, but at the same time, I admire him as him, and I would want to meet him and just shake his hand and say, hey, buddy, how are you?
Yeah.
So, I start with overall thoughts on the movie. Just overall thoughts. Is that all I'm getting?
Do you want the short version or the long version?
The long version for the show to go on.
Overall, okay, fair enough. Overall thought, like, okay, I'm assuming by that you mean because we're gonna get a bit more in depth, like general thoughts.
General, yes.
It was an interesting thing. Like, I feel like with the horror genre these days. Now, again, this is just my opinion. Yours Yasmin's or the viewers might be different. Like whenever I watch a horror film, I expect like suspense and jump scares. To be fair, there's a lot of like suspense, but usually when there is like suspense, like it's a quiet moment, you know there's a threat there. Even if you don't know there's a threat there, you know it's a horror film, you know something's gonna happen. You almost expect a jump scare. Without giving too much away, I never really got that. Like there were like,
Oh, this is a spoiler. This is spoilers.
oh, okay, it is spoilers.
There's going to be a spoiler warning. There's going to be a whole intro to this video.
It never really felt like a proper jump scare. Like there were times when like things right out of the blue happens. Like, for example, when what's her face? I can't remember her name. The babysitter.
Max.
Yeah, Max. When she got out of the car and like walked in and walked up to the thing of Freddy Fazbear, and the hand came out of the arm came out of its mouth and pulled her in and chopped her in half. That was like a very sudden thing, but it didn't feel like a jump scare because it set up for like at least a full minute she's gonna die. And like as soon as it happened, I'm like, okay, something's gonna happen. Yeah, I was right.
So,
You know? And I knew exactly when it was gonna happen.
So, here's the thing you got to think about. This is where I'm going to bring it in a little bit.
Fair.
So, the original games were made for kids. Kids that were about 12 years old to play.
Okay, fair.
So, like, rated 12.
Yeah.
And everything that was scary about the game was initially in the context because you found it out as you were playing. So there weren't as many jump scares yet, but at the same time, the horror is in the context of the movie itself.
Exactly.
So I didn't think it needed as many. I think it had the right amount for it being an intro to the series, because at the end of the day, you're getting 3 movies out of this.
I know. And like I like for the record, I'm not like saying the lack of jump scares was a bad thing. I
know. I'm just basically putting that point out there.
Not the last kind of major in terms like broad-ish thing I can think of for the first question is the fact like partially because one of my I won't name them, but like I have a coworker who like knows a lot about the lore, and so I've learned and I've learned and remembered a few things from her.
I will say the lore itself is confusing because there is a lot of it to unpack. It is a lot across like all of the games that Scott has made.
But the thing is, being someone who, for all intents and purposes, knows next to nothing about the deep lore of it, you don't need to know the lore to enjoy the film. Yeah. And from what I understand of it, it doesn't it's like kind of the MCU, where it doesn't strictly follow its source, but it takes inspiration from it, So like you don't need to.
Scott wrote it.
Oh, the original game creator, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah.
So he basically chatted with Emma, who's the director, and basically they made a compromise of what parts of the game they should use and take, and most of them were Easter eggs throughout the entire movie. So they've got Easter eggs to all of them, and also they've got basically they're taking bits of the lore and then maybe changing it for the context of telling a story on big screens. Because if you put that exact game on a big screen, it is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because you'd just be finding it out bit by bit. And I'm just like, okay, maybe not. You've got to have a full-on story behind it. And it's just like, okay, why do you get behind Mike? Why do you get behind him?
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked how they handled both respecting the lore, but also not making the knowledge of it a requirement.
Yeah. Okay. So, my next question, which I don't know if you were going to have the answer to. Do you think it was on par with the games, more or less?
Never played the game, so I cannot answer. I'm sorry.
Okay. Environment, yes, 100%. Set design, yes, 100%. because they recreated Fazbear's.
That's true. Although, actually, well, I will say, and again, I might be wrong about this, as I understand of it, and if I'm correct, in the first game, and I can't remember if the second is also this case, the pizzeria was like open for business while the events were happening, right?
Oh.
Because if I'm correct, and I only know this because I would read the game descriptions when I would constantly see them pop up on the App Store.
I think it was actually.
Yeah, and then
Because
like
they
I
had
think,
grand reopening and opening.
and then like it was like the third one was like I think 30 years later or something. Hey,
Mhm.
these things have become myth and legend. We want to revive it all, and hey, we have an animatronic now. Spoilers for the third game, which
Yeah.
granted they might
I
not
did
use
forget
that.
that. But obviously the movie, it's completely shut down. And it's
Oh,
set in
yeah.
the year it's set in the year 2000.
Mhm.
So yeah, at first Fazbear's isn't even open.
Which, to be fair, I feel like for the direction that they took with the movie, the fact they had it closed down helped because it aided in the atmosphere. Like the fact that it's closed down, it looks closed down, it looks run down, which is always a good idea for a horror film, having that atmosphere. And so being like having that like on screen was a good thing.
Mhm.
Plus, if people were coming in during like I think that the movie took place over the course of like what 5 or 6 days, right? Kind of like the
Movie plays over across 5 days.
yeah, which makes sense.
Night 1 was his first night. Night 2, he met Foxy and Vanessa. Night 3, Abby came in for the first time. Night 4, Abby and Vanessa. Night 5 was when Mike went back without any of them, and all the shit broke loose and William Afton.
Yeah. But yeah, and so like that whole like having it closed down enabled the plot to be the way it did because with the whole thing with the break-in, like how would you explain that? He did clean it up the next day, but like how would you explain it if it looks clean, but all the stuff that was broken is not there anymore?
Also, the thing about the break-in. One thing Vanessa should have pointed out, they broke in from the back, not from the front.
That is true.
Mike only locked the front, because that's all he's instructed to lock.
Which, to be fair, knowing what we know about how Mike got the job, Vanessa's
Vanessa being Vanessa.
Yeah, Vanessa being Vanessa and her relations to like the quote unquote big bad. I get the feeling Mike not being told to lock the back was probably intentional because hey, like I'd like to imagine that
He didn't know the aunt was gonna commission them to break into the place, though.
Yeah, because, that's true.
The aunt is an ass.
She is. But like even like obviously he didn't count for that. But here's the thing: I have to imagine, like it is my belief / theory that the bunny guy
Bonnie.
no
Wait, no, Afton.
Yeah, the tall
Yellow.
yellow bunny, yeah, Afton. I believe he was only like physically in the building on the 5th night when like all shit went down.
I
At
agree.
least, yes. And so, because of that, I also believe he did not, because we know it wasn't until during the middle of that night that like Abby was taken there and Mike went back,
Yeah.
So I have to feel like, because I also feel like Afton did not know how many days it was going to take for it to get to this point where like they'd be able to get Abby in there,
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying all this, the reason Mike was only told to lock the front door is because, hey, hypothetically, let's say Mike's in the building when the stuff is ready to go, ready to get Abby.
Mhm.
Obviously, I have to tell him to lock the front door, I'm not gonna tell him to lock the back because I need a way in.
That's true.
Yeah, granted, with the way things turned out, it kind of became a moot point, but he didn't know that when he first hired Mike.
Because Vanessa technically covered his ass.
Yes, eventually she turned on him. Yeah.
Yeah. Do we think the casting was accurate?
Accurate or good, you mean?
Do you think it was they should have played those characters essentially?
Josh Hutcherson, good casting. Really excellent
100%.
casting. Because he has proven with movies like Zathura, a lot of his like other films he does a child actor, and a lot with PETA, he is like in a very unique position where he has established himself really well at a relatively young age.
He's
I'm
just
pretty sure
31.
I thought he was like late 20s. I don't know.
No, he's 31.
There. But either way, like he either way, he looks very young. He looks very young.
Yeah.
But he looks old enough where he can play, hey, I'm a much older brother. He
Mhm.
also and when it first started, Mike was like the I'm done with this shit type of attitude, you know? Like
Yeah.
he cares. He's just the world is getting to him, you know?
Just a very depressed.
Which
He's
is like
kind of like being the depressed kid that's just like, yeah, I don't even.
that's a lot of like what he had to do in the Hunger Games, you know? He's like, I'm in way over my head. And he does that very well. And so I feel like him being the role of Mike was a very good choice.
100%.
As for I cannot think of the actress' name at this moment. Vanessa.
Elizabeth Lale.
Yes. To be honest, I'm not familiar with like many of her works. I hadn't really.
She was Anna in Once Upon a Time, and she did another horror movie called Countdown.
Okay.
That's what I'm familiar with.
Fair. I'm gonna look her up real quick. What's her name again?
Elizabeth Lale. I think it was Countdown for Blood. No, no, it was for A24.
Yeah, apparently she was in an episode of Robot Chicken in 22. But on that, it's really only like 5 nights. But so like, either way, like I said, I'm not familiar with enough of her work to know like
What she's like.
well, I'll say this is her performance in 5 nights was really good.
Yeah.
Like she played the kind of like and this kind of is also going into the plot of it, like a quote unquote depending on what happens in 2, I could see their relationship evolving into like a love interest between her and Mike, you know? I felt they did it really well.
I don't want that.
I mean, like
I think here's the thing. When you've got 3 movies, and obviously I think she's daddy's little girl. She's with how she'd been playing him. Obviously, she's very pissed at her. Like, he's very pissed at her right now. 100%.
oh, I know.
And he feels bad that, like, yeah, you came to help, but just wake up so we can have. I think he sees him as more as a friend, just from his perspective. But at the same time,
Well,
I feel like she would still go back to her dad.
to be honest, I disagree. Well, partially because it was never really like we never specifically saw him die. And from like granted, I still feel like there's a lot we don't know about exactly what happens when like
Basically, he's spring locked in that suit. He could
I know.
probably die of infection.
Well, will he die? Will he like die but become like possessing of the suits? However that works, you know?
Yes, because that's a future thing for Springtrap.
Yeah. So like either way, I feel like especially with like her turning against him, she shot him. And then he stabbed her. I feel
She
like
only shot him once.
that is true.
because it's hard for her because dad is dad.
I feel like there a subplot where, like, depending on how the thing goes, with does he like go back to her, I'm assuming like he does like live through it, well, as a ghost or as not, you know. There could,
He would figure out something. He's William Afton, for God's sake.
yeah. As for like the whole quote unquote romance subplot between like Mike or Vanessa, or the lack thereof, like
So
the thing I got is like, with the way the scene ended in the hospital, I feel like when in the second movie, because, and this is kind of getting a bit meta, because it wouldn't really make sense for them to have the like romantic talk, like the starting of relationship right at the start of the film.
mhm.
What could be a good talk though is like in the first act or something, once like the main exposition part gets out of the way, have that talk of like, yeah, you saved us. I know now, like in the end you did the right thing, but you also did a bunch of bad stuff, you know? So it's probably the start of like, obviously, be there probably also need to be a talk of like, okay, how the heck do we explain what happened in there? Because no one's gonna believe there's ghosts. It's like
So
there's gonna be that talk between Mike and Vanessa. How that talk would go, I could not say. But like going into the whole, I don't think there would be a romance subplot, or at least not an evident one, until at the earliest the end of the second film, if such a thing would happen.
so the reason I say no
Hmm.
is because I know her fate.
Okay, don't tell me. You
Obviously,
all, yeah,
obviously I can't like this. I obviously don't actually know, but you've seen me play Security Breach, right?
sure.
Oh, thanks.
I'm sorry.
So much the So Security Breach, there is a security guard called Vanessa
Okay,
who turns into a white murderous bunny called Vanny.
fair.
She's got the exact same fate as her dad. So I think that's going to be kind of designated in there at some point, maybe.
Maybe.
But I don't think a romance is on the cards, if I'm honest.
Well, just because there's a romance doesn't mean it has to end in a happy romance.
I know, but at the same time, I
Let's
don't see them fitting well together.
There. Let's
Just
agree to
contextually.
disagree. How about that? Let's agree to
We
disagree.
do agree to disagree. I'm just making my point. Jesus.
I am aware.
Like,
Um,
with it, like, because a lot of people have also said they don't want it, which Scott is taking into account. He's taken in fan opinions to account so he can write the second one.
what, her death or the romance or what?
The romance.
Fair.
I think just because when you look at Five Nights and how iconic it is, you mainly look at the story of what it is. You don't focus on like the relationships and stuff like that, but also you look at who the character is and who she's trying to match and reference. And Jesus Christ, there is a lot to unpack in that like little suitcase.
I feel like, for the sake of argument, let's say that like the thing of the second movie is like he Matt Lillard. Can't remember the character's name again. Afton?
He was Steve Raglan / William Afton.
Yeah. He like possesses the bunny suit, let's say.
Yeah.
That's take that quote out of context.
That's a guarantee to happen.
Yeah.
100%.
I feel like Vanessa's like character arc would be like, okay, she broke away from her dad, and she thought she closed that loop, but apparently she didn't. Now she's struggling with like, okay, yeah, I knew what ended up happening had to happen, but I still feel terrible about it. It basically has to happen again now, and she's like, it'll go through all her conflicting emotions with that. You know?
Yeah. I do see that. But I think it's mainly their relationship that's going to be tested. But I do think she'll just go back to her dad because, like, she won't know what to do outside of it. But also,
I,
daddy's little girl
I
is
hope
always
she
going to be
doesn't.
daddy's little girl.
I hope she doesn't. Like, I don't know. Anyway, and then I think the question was about like casting.
Yeah.
The other two like main characters were there's Abby, which I felt she did have a lot in like the grand concept of it, like a lot of
I think she
stuff.
was mainly central around the animatronics, 100%.
Yeah, like she was like for the part she was in was really good because like yeah, her parts
Because she
were
was going through the same thing as Mike, but she wasn't exactly telling anybody.
exactly. Um, and then there's also Matt Lillard, which Matt Lillard did good. I did not feel like it had to be Matt Lillard specifically.
So that is an actual reference to the movie. So, sorry, reference to the game because
Yeah.
William Afton has a secret name
Uh-huh.
to basically hire people to work for his thingy, and then
Mhm.
somehow they end up dead.
Yeah.
They're not there for the long run. It's a high turnover for a reason.
Well, I know that, but like I'm
He's a
saying
serial killer.
like that part of it they treated well, but like specifically the casting of the character, I feel like it didn't like Matt Lillard did a great job at it.
I think he just deserved more screen time.
Okay, yeah, that I agree.
He deserved more, 100%. I think we can all agree on that, like, in the sense of just like, we didn't get to see much of the villain because literally he didn't have a lot of screen time.
Which to be fair, and I'm gonna add a conjecture here because I feel like that was partially intentional because I believe they like partway through like production or at some point that they knew a third film or sorry the second film was greenlit, so they
It's
probably were like,
greenlit,
oh,
it's just not in production yet.
fair. It's like okay, a lot of the first film had like for good reason had to be devoted to establishing the characters, establishing the setting, establishing what happened, all of
Mhm.
that. And a lot of that couldn't be properly done if you constantly had the main villain in there. I feel like he's gonna have a lot more screen time in the second film, a lot more.
I do agree he'll have a lot more screen time, but the thing that I feel like would have given him a bit more in the first film, because he is technically the phone guy.
Yeah.
So he could have like just called into Mike every time he went into work. Like every single night of the game, you should get night 1, night 2, and night 3. You'd get a phone call from the phone guy, just basically giving some instructions and like handing over a note. That was him.
Fair.
So if he was just like giving over, like Mike was answering a phone now and again, just like he was doing his check in, just like, hey, how's it going? Instead of sending Vanessa to check in, because Vanessa would do that, but also just have a little phone call with him to make sure he's okay.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, that actually kind of makes sense because you mentioned like, yeah, he sent Vanessa to check in. We know that Vanessa was, at least at the start, kind of working for Afton. So that kind of makes sense that she was the phone call effectively.
She was technically the phone call, but I would have loved to hear from him at the same time. Vanessa being the personal cushion,
Uh-huh.
whereas Steve Raglan was being the authoritative, I am the boss,
Yeah.
like checking in that you're okay. Awesome.
Fair.
I'll check in tomorrow. Bye. Kind of scenario. Whereas
Actually, no, it wouldn't have made sense. It would because at least now granted, I'm not really sure how specifically how the game handled it, but in the movie, we know that because like when Afton was explaining to Mike, like, hey, it's a security job. It's an old place shut down 30 years ago. The owner's like holding on to it,
Mhm.
That implies effect that basically is telling him that, hey, I now granted we know he is the owner, but he's told Mike he's not. So
He
if Mike
hasn't
would have,
specifically told him he's not. He's just basically said, I have a job for you.
yeah.
He just doesn't say
he-
that the owner, because he just goes, the owner hasn't let himself let it go yet, and it's just like,
Fair.
that's just making it obvious that you're the fucking owner.
I don't know. Like to Mike, like that would imply like to Mike that okay, this guy's telling me like in the way the wording he used implies that the guy I'm talking to in this room is not the owner. Okay, what reason would the middleman have for calling me at the job? You know, if anyone were to call me, it'd be
I
the
would
owner.
have said to see if he was settling in, just because even though he's a career counselor, like you're one of those people who's just like just checking in to make sure you're doing okay at your
No,
job.
I'm sure there are routes that they could have done that and it have been fine.
Yeah.
But there are also, again, agree to disagree. There are also many routes where it would not have been fine.
Mhm.
All right.
And then you've got, because I think Matt Lillard was great casting for William Afton, just
Yeah.
generally. And then
I feel like we'll definitely. I feel like it would be important for him to have a lot more screen time in the second film for several reasons.
I think it's gonna happen for the second
Okay.
film. Absolutely. So
Yes,
the YouTuber cameos.
there were YouTuber cameos.
Oh my god.
I apparently I had heard that apparently MatPat was in it. I didn't see MatPat anywhere. What?
Sparky's. He's the waiter.
Oh,
He says it's just a theory.
I think I remember that. Fuck.
Yeah,
I
he's the
don't know
waiter
what-
who goes, "Okay, welcome to Sparky's. Would you like to order anything?" And Mary Stuart Masterson's Aunt Jane just goes, "We're not eating." And then he just goes, "Are you sure? Because lunch is the most important meal of the day. I thought it was breakfast." Well, sometimes people say that, but it's just a theory.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. I did not know that was MatPat.
Yeah, it was.
Nice.
So that was Matt Pat. Corey X Chen was the taxi driver.
I do not know what that is, unfortunately.
He's a gamer who's played the games.
Okay.
I think I've said his name correctly. If I've said it incorrectly, I apologize. I butcher everything. But did you know there was meant to be a Markiplier one in there? Do you
Just
wanna
know.
know?
Wait, tell me what the actual scene was, and then I'll tell you what
So-
the meme I heard was.
So he was supposed to be the security guard at the beginning of the film that was getting killed.
That would have been fun.
I don't think it would have been right for Mark. My personal opinion,
Mhm.
I feel like you give him a cameo in a different way instead of getting killed right at the beginning, because at the same time, he is the king of Five Nights at Freddy's.
That is fair. But then again, I would also raise you that viral clip of him playing Phasmophobia with Jack, Bob, and Wade, where you just hear quietly in the background as he gets
Jack-
killed from inside the
And
house.
Jack and Wade just basically laughing their asses off.
Yeah. So
But
yeah,
I feel like you need two people there to hear it happen. I feel like if you're gonna replicate that in Five Nights at Freddy's,
well, no, you're not replicating the exact thing, but
know.
like it would be a fun little nod.
yeah, but I feel like he'd need two other people with him
Um,
just to listen outside, just like,
Yeah.
I think we should get the fuck out of here. Yeah, run.
but yeah, and so there was a shortly before, like, and like I think it was like a week or two before the thing came out, there was a meme I saw, and it said, "It has been revealed that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie will feature a 10-minute uncensored sex scene between Markiplier and Freddy Fazbear."
That's such fake news.
I don't know. I know, like it was obvious it was a joke and just a meme,
Yeah.
but it was still just fucking hilarious.
Mm. Okay. The favorite moments of the movie that you have.
My favorite moments.
Can I just slightly go first while you think?
Yeah, you go first.
I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I like the animatronics building the fort. Because it is a good reminder that they are kids. They
Mhm.
are kids that just want to have fun. And when they got Abby, Abby was just like, okay, we need to put this table up here and this chair up here, and then we've got ourselves a fort, and it was fun.
Yeah.
And the animatronics did have some fun, and I think it was really cute.
Okay. For my favorite moments, now being the indecisive bastard that I am, if
I said
you
we're going through a few.
oh, we're going for a few. Okay, then the first one I'll give is the moment where Abby slap at the end where Abby slaps her drawing on the wall because the realization that like it's not like they're controlled by their childhood by like hey the drawing's plastered like on the fridge type of thing, you know, and like how Afton had made the drawing of them all being family holding hands, you know,
It
and
was
then
very much alluded to in the beginning of the film with the doctor basically saying that pictures speak a lot for kids.
I did not catch on to that until you mentioned it, but yeah, that makes sense. But like, and then Abby like take down and she showed them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, um, I feel I get the feeling that to at least some extent they like were somewhat conscious and wanted to break free from that. Obviously, they couldn't because they were being controlled by Afton.
So,
But like the fact that they didn't immediately start trying to kill or hurt Mike, they had that whole
Abby.
scene. Yeah, was because like it's like they wanted Abby. That was never, as far as I'm aware, like obviously it eventually kind of became part of it, but as far I'd like to think at the very beginning of it, it wasn't in Afton's plan to have Abby returned. It was just,
so,
hey,
so one
have
thing
this,
about the kids as well
yeah,
is in a couple of shots you couldn't see their faces properly. So there's a reason behind that. It's because they were slowly forgetting who they were at the same time. So that picture being on the wall, they thought the yellow rabbit was their friend.
mm-hmm.
They didn't remember actually being murdered. They didn't remember who they were or anything about themselves.
Yeah,
So because of that, they couldn't exactly know to break free until Abby put that picture on the wall.
yeah.
At that point, they realized, oh, he fucking murdered me.
Yeah. Which begs the question, like, we know that Afton killed Mike's brother.
Garrett.
Garrett, yes. What happened to Garrett? Garrett wasn't one of the animatronics, I don't
So
believe.
the theory at the moment
Yeah?
is that Garrett will be the puppet from Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
Okay.
Because basically,
would
I think he was taken in 1987.
yeah.
And
'Cause
Mike would have been 12 at the time.
Yeah, because Abby was in the movie, she was I think 11.
Hmm?
I think Abby was in the movie, she was 11 or 12, I
10
think.
or 11.
Yeah. And there was that brief dialogue when Mike was talking to her about Garrett that confirms that Abby was born before Garrett was taken.
Yeah.
She was very, very young, probably like
Wait. Before Garrett was taken?
well,
No.
because he said I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something along the lines of like, you remember we had a brother, Garrett. Now, granted, it might have just there's a chance it might have just been weird
She
wording.
wouldn't have known Garrett. 100% she wouldn't have known Garrett because she was born after 87 because you had the mum, the dad, you had Garrett, and you had Mike present at the picnic. Abby was not there.
Fair.
Abby was not there.
Fair.
So she was born afterwards. And basically she heard the conversation from the mum and dad. Then
okay, yeah,
basically to go with the history,
Maybe.
Mike and Abby lost their mum. Dad was a train wreck. Mike gets custody of Abby.
Mhm.
And then Aunt Jane is trying to fight for custody for Abby because she just wanting the child, wanting the benefits.
And she just hates Mike.
Yeah, she just doesn't like Mike. She's just saying he's not looking after her, and it's just like he actually fucking cares more than you do.
Yeah.
And considering you're willing to commit a crime,
Yeah.
this child says you're desperate for money.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the theory about Garrett, that he's going to be the puppet,
Nice.
which I kind of agree with, because initially the puppet in the original games was Henry's daughter, who's basically, because Afton and Emily were both the creators of Fazbear Entertainment.
Mhm.
And Henry had a daughter. William had his kids. A lot of his kids had been taken away from him.
Mhm.
So he murdered Charlie, who was Henry's daughter, and made her the puppet. So, yeah. So, obviously, they're replacing that with Garrett, and I'm wondering where Henry's going to fit into this story, because you can't have Fazbear Entertainment without Afton and Henry. Because Henry created the animatronics.
I don't know. I mean, there's no real way of knowing that until the movies come out.
100%. But yeah, a lot of people are questioning where Henry's going to fit in, which I can't wait to see.
I've never played the game, so I have no I have
Yeah,
no piece to say here. I'm sorry.
I feel like you'll just need a Matt and Pat video to basically catch up.
Fair.
Just like you said, you want Matt and Pat video and you sorted.
Anyway.
But yeah, another moment that I really liked was how, because here's the thing, the animatronics, you know, they're kids at heart, and the pillow fort thing was basically really cute for that.
Yeah.
I love how they were just really loving around Abby. Because obviously they see she's a kid and they just go, friends. Whereas anybody else seems like a threat, even Mike, but at the same time, they don't know Mike isn't a threat. He's just paid to look after them. So I feel like in the second movie, if he goes back to the pizzeria, this is just my thought, that even though he'd probably have another job, he's like an unpaid caretaker where he just goes in and checks on them now and again and then leaves.
Yeah, well, because
I think a side of him still cares.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cute.
Yeah.
Because I just love how Abby asks at the end of the movie, "Can we visit them sometime?" And he just stares like
Anything's possible, or something like that.
he just goes, "You know what? Anything can happen." Because I think he's kind of within that, other than Abby being the most important thing in his life, he's kind of found a purpose with Freddys. Because he's just like, okay, this shit needs to go.
Yeah.
And
But,
if he finds Henry, if he starts digging up a bunch of research about Fazbears,
yeah,
and the next movie is just like looking through boxes of just like history, he becomes the theorist, which I kind of like the idea of.
my God.
He is Matt Pat.
I was about to say, this is just gonna turn into another Matt Pat video.
It's a Matt Pat video, but in film length. But I feel like he'd become kind of like wanting to get the history and then just figure it out, because obviously now he knows who killed Garrett, and he wants to know, okay, so where the fuck is he?
Yes, because he knows Garrett wasn't one of the animatronics he saw. Because he saw the kids that inhabited them, and he would have recognized Garrett.
Did you get to the end credits?
Yes, at the in the end credits, it shows them locking the apparently not yet dead Afton in the bunny suit in the closet.
No, like the very end of the credits.
Give me a moment. Be right back.
Come. Okay. Is he looking this up on you?
Yes, I am. I'll be back.
Oh my god. For context, viewers, I will say it, even if Wade can hear me or not. It says, "Come find me."
Hello.
Did you find it?
I found like the thing you're talking about. It's almost unintelligible because probably on purpose. Hey,
So it's
however,
spelling out "come find me."
yes. What the hell does that mean?
So let me tell you what it means.
Oh boy.
So the funny thing is that end part of the credits,
Yeah.
the actual song, where's the actual soundtrack? Yeah. Okay, so the actual credits song
Mhm.
is called. Where is it? I can't remember the name, but it was something to do with a puppet. And the theory is that basically, because it's reminiscent of the second game, where basically the puppet is spelling out
Mhm.
to follow the puppet and come find them. And obviously, the puppet is theorized to be Garrett. So Garrett is saying, "Come find me," to Mike.
Which then begs the question.
Which would give him motivation.
Yeah. Like we have to assume that unless there's like some sort of hidden door or something in the pizzeria, that there's another location, which I'm sure in the games something like that exists.
So there are multiple locations. Yes.
Well, I figured that. So like, how are they going to do that in the films though, and how is that going to be played out?
I'm sure they're going to figure it out.
I'm sure they will too.
But obviously, the Emily family needs to be put into it, is what I feel as well. Because if they find Henry, then we have some solutions to just like, hi, Henry, yeah,
Help.
Afton is fucking up really badly, and he's done a
Yeah.
bunch of murdering. Can you? Because literally in Five Nights at Freddy's 6, he basically sends all the animatronics to a location and sets fire to the entire place,
My God.
with them all trapped inside as well as him,
Jesus Christ.
including William Afton. But like William Afton says, he always comes back. No, bitch. He can't fucking die, even if he is dead. So yeah, there is a lot to unpack, I think, for the second movie, which
Definitely.
I think just sequel thoughts in general, I think there needs to be a bit on the Emily family, probably. Mike
Mhm.
needs to do his research 100%,
Yes.
and he needs to find out more about the locations and everything. Abby would have grown up a little bit.
Yeah.
Vanessa would still be in a hospital, and she basically has a choice to make.
Fair.
And then Afton just basically being the villainous bitch he is.
I'm excited for the second one.
I'm excited because I think a lot of family history is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
The plot will thicken. The plot thickens. But I'm glad I got you to watch Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
I'm glad I finally fucking did it.
Was that the last question?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on a sequel?
On this, I mean, I've been telling my thoughts pretty much every question that's been asked.
That is fair enough. So,
To be fair, but yeah, I'm
but
excited.
I think we've had a healthy debate,
Yes.
and I'm glad you watched it, buddy.
Yeah, I am too.
Yay!
Yeah. Now you gotta watch it, viewer.
Yes.
Yeah, you right there. You know you know who you are. You know who you are.
We're pointing
You
right at you. I know it's rude, but we're pointing at you.
watch the damn movie.
Watch Five Nights at Freddy's.
Not in a local cinema, but you can get it on Blu-ray and DVD at your
No,
local
no.
probably
Go
video
to
place.
the local cinema and hook up a projector and watch it on the big screen.
If only. I mean,
Here's the
technically,
thing. If I worked at the movie theater, I absolutely would be like, hey, did no one buy a ticket to this showing? Awesome. I get to play Destiny for 2.5 hours on the fucking movie theater.
if only they'd allow you to do that, because I think they're on a schedule as well.
Oh,
So
I know. Like I would be that type of guy who would
Yeah.
try to do that.
I know you would. But thank you so much for chatting about it, Wade, and I'm glad you got to watch
Yeah.
it. We're getting through this list very slowly.
We will get through it.
And I hope you enjoyed this new show. It will be named on the title, not on the because we haven't got a name for it yet.
The yet to be named
The yet
show.
to be named. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to see more Blue Minds content, whether it's a normal podcast episode, whether it's me playing Bendy in the Ink Machine and Dreamlight Valley, whether it's Wade at some point going back to Mass Effect and all his gaming content, whether it is Lou going back to his gaming content, whether it's a group gaming session or just some general fun on this podcast or on this channel, please subscribe. It'd be nice.
Subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Ding and ding.
And don't forget to contact your local representatives and tell them to spread the word about the podcast, because that's how you get the word out.
I mean, that would be nice.
We're only friendly people.
Right? But thank you all for
Bye.
watching. Bye-bye.
Oh, God.